we got to start with OU, right?
Yes.
Because by far the most impactful thing that happened today were the Kansas Jayhawks upsetting the Oklahoma Sooners to move to 6-2 in Kansas. And let's start with the headline stuff here, okay? This is Kansas's first win over Oklahoma since 1997. It's their first top 10 win since the late 80s. And let's really stop for a second, because if you're our age, Aaron, you hear 1997, you're like, oh man, that's crazy. But what you may not appreciate, what that really means is that there was not a player alive on the Kansas roster that had been on this earth, that had emerged out of their father's nutsack and seen Kansas beat Oklahoma. Like, this was the literal first time that any of those human beings walking the earth in the Kansas sideline would have seen a Jayhawk win over Oklahoma. That's massive. And once again, we are all forced to confront and accept that Lance Leipold is putting on an absolute masterclass in Lawrence. Here's my other favorite stat, and then I'm going to get your reaction, Aaron. Matt Zennett's tweeting, Kansas's record from 2010 to 2021, listen to this, was 23-118. 23, and that includes like a last mile stop, all that. 23-118. In 2 years under Lance Leipold, they're 12-9.
Wow.
And 6-2 this season. Give that man all the roses. Massive fucking win. And the best part is, Aaron, I had started writing Kansas's obituary. I'm taking notes and I'm writing my thoughts out. And I had already written, Oklahoma just, Jason Bean made too many mistakes in the end, blah, 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 blah. And look at what fucking happened, dude.
Well, it was a weird game. The weather was, obviously there's a weather delay for those watching it, and just was not the best day for throwing the football. I mean, Dylan Gabriel had 19 completions or 19 attempts on the day. And you said like Jason Bean was making the mistakes throwing the football. And you kind of think like, man, at some point Oklahoma's just going to take that and run away with it. And neither team was kind of doing that. It was just a close running the football game, ugly weather. And the difference was not Jason Bean's arm, but it was his legs, which I was shocked. Like I'm watching the game and they kept referring to his track speed. He's like a 200-yard.
Well, yeah, that's always been Bean's thing. He's just a fucking speed demon.
I didn't realize like he was like that fast. Like when he took off for the one touchdown run, because there's a difference between being essentially a track guy running a 200-meter and being football fast. Like it doesn't always translate. Are you quick fast, or do you need the open space to kind of take off and run? And he put the team on his back knowing that it's not great weather. And he did have a good throw there in that last possession on a little dagger route, which was pretty nice. But his run and his running ability, four carries for 62 yards and the rushing touchdown, long of 38, was awesome to see. Oklahoma, it's a tough loss, man. It's a tough loss not only for them, but interesting to see what happens with the national perspective of the Big 12 in general too right now.
How
that hurts that league.
It's kind of, and you got like kind of a shitty feeling Oklahoma State team kind of emerging. It's like, well, I guess Kansas will be in this conversation now, and they're much
Kansas
better
State
feeling
next week, because I'm not loving. I'm not loving Texas right now.
All I'm saying is like OU and Texas appear to be weakening, and I don't want to include Kansas in this because I love their momentum, but like Oklahoma State has a lot. West Virginia is actually pretty high up there, and those don't feel like especially good teams. But they're at the, they're right under the top guys of the Big 12. So like last year, the Big 12 was really even top to bottom and pretty good. This year they feel, relatively even top to bottom, but maybe like kind of bad. And so, Oklahoma Tech's better to stop messing around here, because it's looking like a playoff scenario that's going to shape up with a lot of contenders, and the Big 12 get left out real easy.
Well, Oklahoma's been playing with fire the entire season, man. Like you go back and look at some of their games throughout the year, and even like that Cincinnati game, 20-6, never really pulled away from that one. The UCF game last week, and then now kind of this game right now. And then obviously we all remember the Texas game. Like that was a great game. That's a great win, but still one that was essentially like a coin toss. You needed a last-second drive to go win that game. So you've been playing on the verge of getting that first L. I still think it's a good team. I still think when you look at their schedule that I would still have them favored versus Oklahoma State, versus West Virginia, versus BYU, versus CCU, like 100%. Like they should win those games, but they also should have won today too. So maybe it was the weather. This is a pass first team. It was good to see Oklahoma in crappy situations be able to run the football. Like that was my big question. Could you, against a Kansas football team that has struggled against the run this entire season defensively, could you actually run the football? Because that's something that Oklahoma has not been able to do unless it's been Dylan Gabriel. Well, Walker went off for 146 yards at 269 yards total for the games. Like, they should gain some confidence there. The problem goes back to the defense. Guys out of position throughout the game. Guys were overrunning plays.
We're burying the lead, because that should have been the lead of this entire conversation, because so much was made about Venables' defense being awful last year, which they were, and then they were really damn good this year. Like, not just okay, not good. They were actually elite at the very beginning of this year, and now you have 2 weeks in a row of major aggression. And if you look at the last 2 weeks, not only has the defense failed overall, Aaron, but they have failed in the biggest moments. You know, last week you're up by 8. Sure, you end up coming up with a 2-point conversion stop to win the game, but like, to let them score, to let UCF, who got absolutely dominated by WU today, to let them score in the manner that you did is pretty inexcusable. And then to force the turnovers that you did late against Kansas here, and then with the game on the line, to let them get the 4th down conversion and let them score again, inexcusable. So all the fears, all the insecurities you had about that Brent Venables defense allowing big plays and everything else, you were hoping they were gone.
27 yards.
But they're back.
It's been 3 weeks. It's not just the 2 weeks. Like, you won the last 2.
That's true. I'm not thinking about that though, because they won that game.
Yeah, but they also won UCF. Like, it's been the offense having to bail out the defense. And yeah, the defense had some really nice turnovers in early on that Texas football game, but they still had over 500 yards, and it took Dylan Gabriel marching them down the field in the 4th quarter at the end of the game for them to win it. So there are still problems on that side of the football that it's not USC. Like, I don't want to say like this is the same thing as the Trojans that are horrendous once again this year. There is progress for Oklahoma on the defensive side of the football, but it's not like there's some world beaters all of a sudden.
No, they have to be better though. They have to be better.
Yes,
it's not okay to be okay on that side of the ball. Like, that's Brent Venables' bread and butter.
Yep.
Like, they have talent there. They have to be better. And what's interesting, it's the fascinating thing, Aaron, that just a couple of weeks, what a couple of weeks can do to you in college football, where a month ago, Brent Venables is a made man. He's essentially a god. He won this all-important Red River rivalry at the Texas State Fair. Everybody's in love with him. Now a couple of shaky weeks in which the defense completely fails in the biggest moments, and all of a sudden, a little grumbling starting up once again. You know, what's going on here? So look, Oklahoma still controls their own destiny, certainly. But it looks more and more now than ever that not only will they have a rematch with Texas, but you're going to start to find, and Aaron, I'm sure you're already on this. Like, I know you're on this probably with Oregon and Washington, but if Oklahoma and Texas play today, who do you think wins?
Texas.
Yeah, I see. Exactly. I knew you were going to say that.
But the problem is right now with Texas, you know, and I was watching that game today too. We'll stick on the Big 12 theme here. Malik Murphy was not impressive to me. And you look at their schedule next week, like
logged down for the middle 2 quarters of that game.
Yeah.
2.5.
Their defense was great today. Like, their defense won it. They had the punt return for a touchdown. Like, if BYU just would have punted the ball instead of throwing interceptions, it would have been I think they might have covered the spread, which, I'm kind of pissed off they didn't. But regardless, I'm worried for them next week versus Kansas State, and we'll break that down later down the road. I don't want to focus on that right now, but yeah, you should be worried right now as a Big 12 fan, because if Texas loses next week, but then gets yours back, and I think Texas in a rematch versus Oklahoma will get it, the Big 12 may knock themselves out.
Well, but that's maybe where it gets interesting. If you're a Big 12 fan, you're actually probably pretty happy, because you don't want Texas or Oklahoma making the playoff there last year in the Big 12, right? Like, you're kind of like, fuck these motherfuckers. I hope they all lose and get the hell up out of here. So Big 12 fans might be okay. Yeah, but Oklahoma and Texas fans need to be concerned.
You have to agree that this is the last legit year that a Big 12 team will have a possibility of winning a national championship.
No. I can't say that simply because if you're in the 12-team playoff, I'll always give you a chance. I'm going to treat it like the NFL playoff, even though it's not exactly.
This is the best chance.
Yeah, but they're not going to. But they're still not going to take any pride in it. You think they're going to be happy if Texas or OU wins a natty?
Yeah, but it still goes. It still goes in the record books as a Big 12 champion.
I will have to agree to disagree. One final thing, and then we'll move on to Georgia. This is okay. I want to highlight again. Let's go back to Kansas. I want to highlight Jason Bean. I want to give him loves because this is. I'm going to read my notes verbatim here. For Kansas fans, you just got to be wondering what this season would be like if Jalen Daniels had stayed healthy. Jason Bean is exciting and makes big plays, but he just makes too many obvious mistakes. Jalen Daniels does not. Still, love what Leipold's building. Wish the Jayhawks could have gotten the win today. So congratulations to Jason Bean for shoving my mid-game notes right up my ass, because after throwing 2 horrific interceptions where you felt like you ruined everything, the first win since 87, like everything came down to you and you ruined it all, to stare down the long field that he did at the end of the game and find a way into the end zone. Do not take that for granted. And look, I know maybe Kansas shouldn't have scored at the end or whatever, but the defense had been salty. Oklahoma got a bit lucky on the crazy underthrow to get the 40-yard gain. I don't hate it. Kansas wins. Congratulations, Jason Bean. That's fucking awesome. It's a memory that no matter what you do in your entire life, you'll carry that with you for the rest of your life. Congrats.